Integration in logical learning.
Previously, we discussed about The Merchant of Venice Part 1, and today we will be discussing about Merchant of Venice Part 2, prepared and presented by Nirban Nandi. Act 1, Scene 1. Antonio, a Venetian merchant, keeps on telling his friends about a strange sadness he is facing. He doesn't know why. His friends suggested earlier that he is tense due to a huge fleet of his ships in his ocean now, or he has fallen in love. But Antonio readily rejects both the possible causes and remarks that he is just but a player on a stage destined to play a sad part. However, his friend Bassanio asks a loan from him to secure a date with his love interest Portia, a rich heiress of Belmont. Now, Antonio says that under certain circumstances he cannot lend Bassanio money, but he can try to arrange a loan for someone else. Scene 2. At Belmont, Portia tells her lady-in-waiting, Nerissa, that she is weary of the world. Her dead fathers will stipulate her to decide for herself whether to take a husband. Instead, Portia's various suitors must choose between 3 caskets, one of gold, one of silver, and one of lead, in the hopes of selecting the one that contains her portrait. The man who guesses correctly will win Portia's hand in marriage, but those who guess incorrectly must swear never to marry anyone. Nerissa lists the suitors who have come to guess: a Neapolitan prince, a Palatine count, a French nobleman, an English baron, a Scottish lord, and the nephew of the Duke of Saxony, and Portia criticizes their many hilarious faults. For instance, she describes the Neapolitan prince as being too fond of his horse, the Palatine count as being too serious, the Englishman as lacking any knowledge of Italian or any other languages Portia speaks, and the German suitor of drunkenness. Each of the suitors has left without even attempting a guess for fear of penalty for guessing wrong. This fact relieves Portia, and both she and Nerissa remember Bassanio, who has visited once before as the suitor most deserving and worthy of praise. A servant enters to tell Portia that the Prince of Morocco will arrive soon, news that Portia is not at all happy to hear. Scene 3. Shylock, a Jewish moneylender, agrees to loan Bassanio 3,000 ducats for a term of 3 months. Bassanio assures Shylock that Antonio will guarantee the loan. Shylock decides that Antonio's guarantee of the loan will be sufficient assurance and asks to speak with him. When Antonio arrives, Shylock, in an aside, confesses his hatred for the man. Antonio, Shylock says, is a Christian who lends money without interest, which makes more difficult the practice of usury, in which money is lent out at exorbitant interest rates. Shylock is also incensed by Antonio's frequent public denunciations of Shylock. Antonio makes it clear to Shylock that he is not in the habit of borrowing or lending money, but has decided to make an exception on behalf of his friend Bassanio. As he calculates the interest on Bassanio's loan, Shylock remembers the many times that Antonio has cursed him, calling him a misbeliever, cutthroat, dog, and split upon his Jewish gabardine. Antonio responds that he is likely to do so again and insists that Shylock lend him the money as an enemy. Such an arrangement, Antonio claims, will make it easier for Shylock to extract a harsh penalty if the loan is not paid. Assuring Antonio that he means to be friends, Shylock offers to make the loan without interest. Instead, he suggests, seemingly in jest, that Antonio forfeit a pound of his own flesh should the loan not be repaid in due time. Bassanio warns Antonio against entering such an agreement, but Antonio assures him that he will have no trouble repaying the debt, as his ships will soon bring him wealth that far exceeds the value of the loan. Shylock attempts to dismiss Bassanio's suspicions, asking what profit he stands to make by procuring a pound of Antonio's flesh. As Shylock heads off to the notary office to sign the bond, Antonio remarks on Shylock's new-found generosity. The Hebrew will turn Christian, he grows kind. Bassanio remains suspicious of the arrangement, but Antonio reminds him that his ships will arrive within the next 2 months. Act 2, Scene 1. In Belmont, the Prince of Morocco arrives to attempt to win Portia's hand in marriage. The prince asks Portia not to judge him by his dark complexion, assuring her that he is as valorous as any European man. Portia reminds the prince that her own taste doesn't matter, since the process of picking chest, stimulated in her father's will, makes the prince as worthy as any other suitor. With a lengthy proclamation of his own bravery and heroism, the prince asks Portia to lead him to the caskets where he may venture his guess. She reminds him that the penalty for guessing incorrectly is that he must remain unmarried forever. The prince accepts this stipulation and Portia leads him to the dinner. Scene 2. Launcelot Gobbo, a servant of Shylock's, struggles to decide whether or not he should run away from his master. Part of him, which he calls the fiend at mine elbow, wants to leave, while his conscience reminds him of his honest nature and urges him to stay. Although Launcelot has no specific complaints, he seems troubled by the fact that his master is Jewish, or as Launcelot puts it, a kind of devil. Bassanio then meets Gratiano, who asks to accompany him to Belmont and agrees on the condition that Gratiano tame his characteristically wild behavior. Gratiano promises to be on his best behavior, and the two men plan a night of merriment to celebrate their departure. Scene 3. Shylock's daughter Jessica bids goodbye to Launcelot. She tells him that his presence made life with her father more bearable. Jessica gives Launcelot a letter to carry to Bassanio's friend Lorenzo, and Launcelot leaves, almost too tearful to say goodbye. Jessica, left alone, confesses that although she feels guilty for being ashamed of her father, she is only his daughter by blood and not by actions. Still, she hopes to escape her damning relationship to Shylock by marrying Lorenzo and converting to Christianity. Scene 4. On a street in Venice, Gratiano, Lorenzo, Salerno, and Solanio discuss the plan to unite Lorenzo with Jessica. Gratiano frets that they are not well prepared, but Lorenzo assures the men that they have enough time to gather the necessary disguises and torchbearers. As they talk, Launcelot enters bearing Jessica's letter. Lorenzo recognizes the writing, lovingly exclaiming that the hand that penned the message is whiter than the paper it written. Lorenzo bids Launcelot to return to Shylock's house in order to assure Jessica secretly that Lorenzo will not let her down. Launcelot departs and Lorenzo orders his friends to prepare for the night's festivities. Salerno and Solanio leave, and Lorenzo relates to Gratiano that Jessica will escape from Shylock's house by disguising herself as Lorenzo's torchbearer. Lorenzo gives Gratiano the letter and asks Gratiano to read it, then leaves, excited for the evening's outcome. Scene 5. Shylock warns Launcelot that Bassanio will not be as lenient as master as Shylock himself has been, and that Launcelot will no longer be at liberty to overreact and oversleep. Shylock calls for Jessica and tells her that he has been summoned for dinner. Worried by a premonition that trouble is brewing, Shylock asks Jessica to keep the doors locked and not look out at the revelry taking place in the streets. Launcelot whispers to Jessica that she must disobey her father and look out the window for the Christian who will be worth a Jew's eye. Shylock asks Jessica about her furtive conversation with Launcelot and says that though Launcelot is kind, he eats and sleeps too much to be an efficient, worthwhile servant. After Shylock has left to see Bassanio, Jessica bids him farewell, thinking that if nothing goes wrong, Shylock will soon have lost a daughter and she a father. Scene 6. As planned, Gratiano and Salarino meet in front of Shylock's house. They are especially anxious because Lorenzo is late, and they think that lovers tend always to be early. The garrulous Gratiano expounds on Salarino's theory that love is at its best when the lover chases the object of his affection, and that once the lover captures his lady and consummates the relationship, he tends to tire and lose interest. Lorenzo joins them, apologizes for his tardiness, and calls up to Jessica, who appears on the balcony dressed as a page. Jessica tosses him a casket of gold and jewels. Jessica descends and exits with Lorenzo and Salarino. Just then Antonio enters to report that Bassanio is sailing for Belmont immediately. Gratiano is obliged to leave these festivities and join Bassanio at once. Scene 7. Back in Belmont, Portia shows the Prince of Morocco to the caskets where he will attempt to win her hand by guessing which chest contains her portrait. The first casket, made of gold, is inscribed with the words, "Who chooseth me shall gain what many men desire." The second, made of silver, reads, "Who chooseth me shall get as much as he deserves." The third, a heavy leaden casket, declares, "Who chooseth me must give and hazard all the hath." After much pondering, the prince chooses the gold casket, reasoning that only the most precious metal could house the picture of such a beautiful woman. He opens the chest to reveal a skull with a scroll in its eye socket. After reading a short poem chastising him for the folly of his choice, the prince makes a hasty departure. Portia is glad to see him go and hopes that all of his complexion choose me so. Scene 8. Having witnessed Shylock's rage upon learning of Jessica's elopement, Solanio describes the scene to Salarino. Shylock, he reports, railed against the loss of his daughter and his ducats, and he shouted a loud, urgent appeal for justice and the law to prevail. Solanio hopes that Antonio is able to pay his debt, but Salarino reminds him of the rumors that the long-awaited ships have capsized in the English Channel. The two men warmly remember Bassanio's departure from Antonio, wherein the merchant insisted that his young friend is not allowed thoughts of debt or danger to interfere with his courtship of Portia. Scene 9. The Prince of Aragon is in Belmont to try his luck at winning Portia's hand in marriage. When brought to the caskets, he selects the silver one, confident that he shall get as much as he deserves. Inside he finds a portrait of a blinking idiot and a poem that condemns him as a fool. Soon after he departs, a messenger arrives to tell Portia that a promising young Venetian who seems like the perfect suitor has come to Belmont to try his luck of the casket game. Hoping that it is Bassanio, Portia and Nerissa go out to greet the new suitor. Act 3, Scene 1. Salarino and Solanio discuss the rumors that yet another of Antonio's ships has been wrecked. They are joined by Shylock, who accuses them of having helped Jessica escape. The two Venetians proudly take credit for their role in Jessica's elopement. Shylock curses his daughter's rebellion, to which Salarino responds, "There is more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory." Salarino then asks Shylock whether he can confirm the rumors of Antonio's lost vessels. Shylock replies that Antonio will soon be bankrupt and swears to collect his bond. Salarino doubts Shylock's resolve, wondering what the old man will do with a pound of flesh, to which Shylock willingly replies that Antonio's flesh will at least feed his revenge. In a short monologue, Shylock says Antonio has mistreated him solely because Shylock is a Jew, but now Shylock is determined to apply the lessons of hatred and revenge that Christian intolerance has taught him so well. Salarino and Solanio head off to meet with Antonio just as Tubal, a friend of Shylock's and a Jew, enters. Tubal announces that he cannot find Jessica. Shylock rants against his daughter and he wishes her dead as he bemoans his losses. He is especially embittered when Tubal reports that Jessica has taken a ring given to Shylock in his bachelor's days by a woman named Leigh, presumably Jessica's mother, and has traded that ring for a monkey. Shylock's spirits brighten, however, when Tubal reports that Antonio's ship have run into trouble and that Antonio's creditors are certain Antonio is ruined. Scene 2. In Belmont, Portia begs Bassanio to delay choosing between the caskets for a day or two. If Bassanio chooses incorrectly, Portia reasons she will lose his company. Bassanio insists that he make his choice now, to avoid prolonging the torment of living without Portia as his wife. Portia orders that music be played while her love make his choices, and she compares Bassanio to the Greek hero and the demigod Hercules. Like the suitors who have come before him, Bassanio carefully examines the three caskets and puzzles over their inscriptions. He rejects the gold casket, saying that if the world is still deceived with ornament, while the silver he deems a pale and common drudge tween man and man. After much debate, Bassanio picks the lead casket, which he opens to reveal Portia's portrait along with a poem congratulating him on his choice and confirming that he has won Portia's hand. The happy couple promises one another love and devotion, and Portia gives Bassanio a ring that he must never part with, as his removal of it will signify the end of his love for her. Nerissa and Gratiano congratulate them and confess that they too have fallen in love with one another. They suggest a double wedding. Lorenzo and Jessica arrive in the midst of his rejoicing along with Salarino, who gives a letter to Bassanio. In the letter, Antonio writes that all his ships are lost and that Shylock plans to collect his pound of flesh. The news provokes a fit of guilt in Bassanio, which in turn prompts Portia to offer to pay 20 times the sum. Jessica, however, worries that her father is more interested in revenge than in the money. Bassanio reads out the letter loud from Antonio, who asks only for a brief reunion before he dies. Portia urges her husband to rush to his friend's aid, and Bassanio leaves for Venice. Scene 3. Shylock escorts the bankrupt Antonio to prison. Antonio pleads with Shylock to listen, but Shylock refuses. Remembering the many times Antonio condemned him as a dog, Shylock advises the merchant to be aware of his bite. Assured that the Duke will grant him justice, Shylock insists that he will have his bond and tells the jailer not to bother speaking to him of mercy. Solanio declares that Shylock is the worst of men, and Antonio reasons that the Jew hates him for bailing out many of the Shylock's debtors. Solanio attempts to comfort Antonio by suggesting that the Duke will never allow such a ridiculous contract to stand, but Antonio is not convinced. Venice, Antonio claims, is a wealthy trading city with a great reputation for upholding the law, and if the Duke breaks that law, Venice's economy will suffer. As Solanio departs, Antonio prays desperately that Bassanio will arrive too, see me pay his debt, and then I care not. Scene 4. Lorenzo assures Portia that Antonio is worthy of all the help she is sending him, and that if Portia only knew the depths of Antonio's love and goodness, she would be proud of her efforts to save him. Portia replies that she has never regretted doing a good deed, and goes on to say that she could never deny help to anyone so close to her dear Bassanio. Indeed, Antonio and Bassanio are so inseparable that Portia believes saving her husband's friend is no different than saving her own husband. She has sworn to live in prayer and contemplation until Bassanio returns to her, and announces that she and Nerissa will retire to a nearby monastery. Lorenzo and Jessica, she declares, will rule the estate in her absence. Portia then sends her servant Balthazar to Padua, where he is to meet her cousin Dr. Bellario, who will provide Balthazar with certain documents and clothing. From there, Balthazar will take the ferry to Venice, where Portia will await him. After Balthazar departs, Portia informs Nerissa that the two of them, dressed as young men, are going to pay an incognition visit to their new husbands. When Nerissa asks why, Portia dismisses the question but promises to disclose the whole of her purpose on the coach ride to Venice. Scene 5. Quoting the adage that the sins of the father shall be delivered upon the children, Launcelot says he fears for Jessica's soul. When Jessica claims that she will be saved by her marriage to Lorenzo, Launcelot complains that the conversion of the Jews who do not eat pork will have disastrous consequences on the price of bacon. Lorenzo enters and chastises Launcelot for impregnating a Moorish servant. Launcelot delivers a dazzling series of puns in reply and departs to prepare for the dinner. When Lorenzo asks Jessica what she thinks of Portia, she responds that the woman is without match, nearly perfect in all aspects. Lorenzo jokes that he is as good a spouse as Portia and lets them off to the dinner. Act 4, Scene 1. In Venice, the court convenes for Antonio's trial. The Duke of Venice greets Antonio and expresses pity for him, calling Shylock an inhuman monster who can summon neither pity nor mercy. Antonio says he knows the Duke has done all that he can do lawfully counter Shylock's malicious intentions, and that since nothing else can be done, Antonio will respond to Shylock's rage with a quietness of spirit. The Duke summons Shylock into the courtroom and addresses him, saying that he believes Shylock means only to frighten Antonio by extending this drama to the brink of performance. The Duke believes that Shylock actually means to inflict such a horrible penalty on Antonio, who has already suffered the loss of his ships. Shylock reiterates his intentions and says that should the court deny him his right the city's very laws and freedoms will be forfeit. Shylock offers no explanation for his insistence other than to say that certain hatreds, like certain passions, are lodged deep within a person's heart. Shylock hates Antonia, and for him that is the reason enough. Bassanio, who has arrived from Belmont, attempts to argue with Shylock, but Antonio tells him that his efforts are for naught. Hatred and predation, Antonio suggests, come as naturally to as men, so that they do the wolf. Bassanio offers Shylock 6,000 ducats, twice the amount of the original loan, but Shylock turns down the offer, saying he would not forfeit his bond for 6 times that sum. When the Duke asks Shylock how he expects to receive the mercy when he offers none, Shylock replies that he has no need for mercy, as he has done nothing wrong, just as the slave owing Christmas of Venice would refuse to set their human property free. Shylock will not relinquish the pound of flesh that belongs to him. The Duke says that he has sent messages to the learned lawyer Dr. Bellario, asking him to come and decide on the matter. News comes that a messenger has arrived from Bellario, and Salarino runs off to fetch him. Meanwhile, Bassanio tries, without much success, to cheer up the despairing Antonio. Nerissa enters disguised as a lawyer's clerk and gives the Duke a letter from Bellario. Shylock whets his knife, anticipating a judgment in his favor, and Gratiano accuses him of having the soul of a wolf. Shylock ignores these slurs and states resolutely, "I stand here for law." The Duke alludes to the fact that Bellario's letter mentions a learned young lawyer named Balthazar, and orders the disguised Nerissa to admit the young man to the court. The Duke then reads the letter in its entirety. In it, Bellario writes that he is ill and cannot come to the court, but that he has sent the learned young Balthazar to judge in his stead. Scene 1 continues. Portia enters disguised as Balthazar. The Duke greets her and asks whether she is familiar with the circumstances of the case. Portia answers that she knows the case well, and the Duke calls Shylock and Antonio before her. Portia asks Antonio if he admits to owing Shylock the money. When Antonio answers yes, Portia concludes that the Jew must be merciful. Shylock asks why he must show mercy, and in one of the play's most famous speeches, Portia responds that the quality of mercy is not strained, but is a blessing to both those who provide and those who receive it. Because mercy is an attribute of God, Portia reasons human approach the divine when they exercise it. Shylock brushes aside her pretty speech, however, by reiterating his demands for justice and revenge. Portia asks whether Antonio is able to pay the money, and Bassanio offers Shylock twice the sum owed. If need be, Bassanio says he is willing to pay the bond 10 times over, or with his own life. Bassanio begs the court to bend the law slightly in order to exonerate Antonio, reasoning that such a small infraction is a little wrong for a great right. Portia replies, however, that the law shall not be broken, the decrees of Venice must stand. Shylock joyfully extols Portia's wisdom and gives her the bond for inspection. She looks it over, declares it legal and binding, and bids Shylock to be merciful. Shylock remains deaf to reason, however, and Portia tells Antonio to prepare himself for the knife. She orders Shylock to have a surgeon on hand to prevent the merchant from bleeding to death. But Shylock refuses because the bond stipulates no such safeguard. Antonio bids Bassanio farewell. He asks his friend not to grieve for him and tells Bassanio that he is happy to sacrifice his life if only to prove his love. Both Bassanio and Gratiano says that though they love their wives, they would give them up in order to save Antonio. In a pair of sarcastic asides, Portia and Nerissa mutter that Bassanio's and Gratiano's wives are unlikely to appreciate such sentiments. Shylock is on the verge of cutting into Antonio when Portia suddenly reminds him that the bond stipulates a pound of flesh only and makes no allowances for blood. She urges Shylock to continue collecting his pound of flesh, but reminds him that if a drop of blood is spilled, then he will be guilty of conspiring against the life of a Venetian citizen, and all his lands and goods will be confiscated by the state. Stunned, Shylock hastily backpedals, agreeing to accept 3 times the sum, but Portia is insistent, saying that Shylock must have the pound of flesh or nothing. When Shylock finds out that he cannot even take the original 3,000 ducats in place of the pound of flesh, he drops the case, but Portia stops him, reminding him of the penalty that the non-citizens face when they threaten the life of a Venetian. In such a case, Portia states, half of Shylock's property would go to the state, while the other half would go to the offended party, namely Antonio. Portia orders Shylock to beg for the Duke's mercy. The Duke declares that he will show mercy. He spares Shylock's life and demands only a fine rather than half of the Jew's estate. Shylock claims that they may as well take his life, as is it worthless without his estate. Antony offers to return his share of Shylock's estate on the condition that Shylock convert to Christianity and bequeath all his goods to Jessica and Lorenzo upon his death. Shylock consents and departs, saying simply, "I am not well." Scene 1 continues. After Shylock leaves, the Duke invites Portia, still in the disguise of a young lawyer, to dinner. Portia declines, saying that she must leave immediately for Padua. As she leaves, the Duke tells Antonio to reward the young law clerk, since it was he who saved Antonio's life. Bassanio thanks Portia, though he does not see through her disguise, and offers her the money he brought with him in order to pay off Shylock. Portia declines the gift and says that having delivered Antonio from Shylock's clutches is payment enough. Bassanio insists that she take some taken from him, and she eventually agrees. Portia asks Antonio for his gloves and Bassanio for his ring, which she herself gave Bassanio on the condition that they never part with it. Bassanio pulls his hand away, calling the ring a trifle and claiming that he will not dishonor the judge by giving him such a lowly gift. Instead, Bassanio offers to find the most valuable ring in Venice, but Portia remains firm and demands the trifle or nothing. When Bassanio admits that the ring was a gift from his wife, who made him promise never to part with it, Portia claims that the excuse is convenient and used by many men to hold on to possessions they would rather not lose. With that, she takes her leave. Antonio urges Bassanio to let the law clerk have the ring, saying that he would value Antonio's love and the gentleman's worth more than his wife's orders. Bassanio gives in and sends Gratiano to run after Portia and present her with the ring. Antonio and Bassanio then leave for Antonio's house to plan their trip to Belmont. Scene 2. Meanwhile, Portia sends Nerissa to Shylock's house to ensure that Shylock signs the deed that will leave his fortune to Lorenzo and Jessica. Portia observes that Lorenzo will be happy to have this document. Once they complete this task, the disguised women plan to leave for Belmont, which will ensure their arrival a full day before their husbands. Gratiano enters, offers Bassanio's ring to Portia, and invites her to dinner. Portia accepts the ring but declines the invitation. Portia asks Gratiano to show Nerissa to Shylock's house, and Nerissa, before leaving, tells Portia that she will likewise try to convince Gratiano to part with this ring. The plan satisfies Portia, who imagines how Gratiano and Bassanio will swear up and down they gave their rings to men, and looks forward to embracing them. Nerissa turns to Gratiano and asks him to lead her to Shylock's house. Act 5, Scene 1. In moonlit Belmont, Jessica and Lorenzo compare themselves to the famous lovers from classical literature like Troilus and Cressida, Pyramus and Thisbe, and Dido and Ananias. The couple goes back and forth with endless declarations of love when a messenger suddenly interrupts them. The messenger informs them that Portia will soon return from the monastery, and Lorenzo and Jessica prepare to greet the mistress of the house. Launcelot enters and announces that Bassanio will return to Belmont the next day. Lorenzo calls for music, and he and Jessica sit on a grassy bank beneath the stars. Lorenzo contemplates the music made by the movement of heavenly orbs, which mortal humans cannot hear while alive. The musicians arrive and begin to play, and Lorenzo decides that anyone who is not moved by music deserves the worst cruelties and betrayals. Scene 1 continues. Portia and Nerissa enter and hear the music before they reach the estate. Portia believes that the music is made more beautiful by the night, and the flickering candles lighting up her estate enchant her. She decides that the worth of things is determined largely by the context in which they are experienced. Lorenzo greets Portia, and she requests that he not mention her absence to her husband. Trumpets sound as Bassanio, Antonio, and Gratiano arrive. Portia greets Bassanio, who introduces her to Antonio, who reports in turn that he has been acquitted in the courts of Venice. Gratiano and Nerissa begin to argue over the ring with which he promised never to part. Nerissa chastises her husband not for hurting her feelings but for breaking his own promise. Gratiano insists that he gave the ring of a lawyer's clerk as a fee, and Portia criticizes him for parting with so precious a gift, saying that her own husband would never have parted with his ring. Gratiano corrects her and reveals that Bassanio has in fact given his ring to the lawyer who saved Antonio. Portia declares that her husband's heart is as empty as his finger, and she promises never to visit his bed until he produces the ring. Act 5, Scene 1. Bassanio pleads with Portia to understand he gave the ring to a worthy man to whom he was indebted, but Portia dismisses his reasoning, saying it is more likely that Bassanio gave the ring to another woman. Portia vows to be equally unfaithful, threatening to offer the same worthy man anything she owns, including her body or her husband's bed. Antonio intercedes on behalf of Bassanio and Gratiano, asking the woman to accept his soul should either Bassanio or Gratiano prove unfaithful again. Portia and Nerissa relent, giving each of their husbands a ring and suggesting that they exercise more care in keeping these rings. Bassanio and Gratiano recognize these as the same rings they gave to the lawyer and his clerk, and Portia and Nerissa claim that they lay with the gentleman in order to get back the rings. Before either Bassanio or Gratiano prove unfaithful again, Portia and Nerissa relent, giving each of their husbands a ring and suggesting that they exercise more care in keeping these rings. Bassanio and Gratiano recognize these as the same rings they gave to the lawyer and his clerk, and Portia and Nerissa claim that they lay with the gentleman in order to get back the rings. Before either Bassanio or Gratiano can become too upset at being cuckolded, however, Portia reveals that she was the lawyer in Venice, and Nerissa clerk. Antonio receives the news that some of his ships have miraculously arrived in port, and Lorenzo is told that he will inherit Shylock's fortune. The company rejoices in its collective good fortune. Thank you, students, for watching this video. I think we had a good storytelling time. Yes, goodbye and see you the next time.